Good morning, everyone. It is Friday, January, 19th? Something like that. Anyway, we haven't been out here to the property and the cabin since before New Year's. So it's been a little while, and it's time to start getting to work again. And we are at the point where we're actually starting to re-insulate some of the exterior walls, which is kind of a big step. Unfortunately, here at this cabin, we have only 2x4 exterior walls. Most modern construction these days, they use 2x6, and you can fit thicker insulation in there. So we're a bit limited on the amount of insulation we can actually put in the walls. Much like a down jacket or wool or something like that, a lot of the insulation's insulating properties comes from the fact that it's puffy. And all that air gap inside of the fibers is what really helps out with the insulation value. A common mistake that a lot of people make when they install this is smush it down and crush it and cram it into every little nook and cranny. You want to take your time and cut around boxes and tuck a little insulation behind there and make sure you get your cuts nice and clean so you don't have any gaps. Don't just start tucking and cramming.
This is another important technique. Splitting the insulation, then tucking it behind things like your wires or pipes in the wall. That way you don't end up with an air gap. Then, of course, tack down the vapor barrier nice and smooth and flat.
But then you could put the drywall up, which is another awesome step because that's really when things start looking like something. I'll admit that I have very, very little experience with drywall, and it's a little bit trickier than it looks.
The boards generally come in 4x8 sheets, and they weigh about 50 pounds apiece. Carefully lay out your cuts and make sure you use a straight edge. And you can quickly cut it just by scoring it several times with a utility knife. Then you snap it in half.
So one of the challenges that's going to be with this whole thing is there's multiple different surfaces. Like over here, the window header was about a 1/2 inch recessed from the surface of where the studs are, and so putting on a piece of drywall here, I would have had this cavity here because I'm going to run the drywall right to the edge of the window. These windows are going to go away. We're going to put new ones in, but since it's a 1/2 inch, I was able to use a 1/2 inch piece of sheetrock to kind of add to that. Now I can put a real piece of sheetrock across here to finish that out. I'm going to have to do the same thing over the other windows and the door as well. All right, well, it is 6:30 Sunday morning, and we've got some drywall up. So we've got the north wall completely insulated and drywalled, and the east wall completely insulated and drywalled. And then this right here is cement board. It's basically kind of like a type of drywall, but it's made out of cement, and it's heat resistant and burn resistant, but this is where the wood stove is going to go. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is going up to the loft upstairs and working on some stuff up there.
And of course, the 4x8 boards are not going to fit up the stairs. In fact, cutting them in half into 4x4 sheets, I was just barely able to squeeze them in. And of course, you need to be careful not to break the board or crack the edges. If you've made your measurements and cuts properly, the drywall should fit together nice and snug like a jigsaw puzzle. The more neatly and tightly everything fits together will save you a lot of time and trouble down the road during the taping and mudding phase.
So I cut these boards here because I need to put them in here so we can fasten sheetrock to the ceiling. And you can see here there's a stud, but there's no stud over here that the sheetrock will be able to butt up against to attach it. So I've got to put these little blocks in here like that so that the sheetrock can be screwed in. I got to put these every few feet all the way on both sides. So now I've got to cut a piece of drywall that has an angle in it that fits nice and snug in there all the way to the edge. The easiest way to do that is right here on the edge. I know that's where the edge of this next board is going to be, 4 feet off the wall. So at that 4-foot mark, I'm going to measure up to about where the top of the board is going to end, which is 40 inches. And then it's going to pretty much taper down to 0 on the far end there. Come across here, measure 40. Unfortunately, my longest straight edge is 4 feet, which I need bigger than that on this. So what I can do is use my ghetto straight edge, this 2x3, line it up with the end of the board, and then line up the top half to my notch at 40 inches. And that should be my mark right there. Like a glove. Well, it's a good thing that I'm not a drywaller for a living, because that took several hours and was a pain in the butt. And I know I didn't do the best job. It's also a good thing that a good portion of this is going to be covered by paneling, but it's done. Good morning, everybody. It is Monday morning, January 20 something. This cedar paneling that we have right here is something that we are going to want to be putting a lot of in this cabin to kind of really get that nice, warm, cabiny feel to it. It's basically a tongue and groove product. Kind of goes together like a laminate flooring or a hardwood floor. It's super thin, however, 1/4 inch thick, so it's very soft and very fragile. So you really got to handle it very gingerly and make sure you don't split either the groove or the tongue, because then you're going to have a hard time fitting it together. It also smells great. So just to put all this into perspective, this is $30 in cedar paneling right here. And we want to do, from the start of the fiber cement there, all the way across here, all the way across there, all along that wall under the window, and everything but the ceiling in the loft. So one thing I'm doing off camera that I'm not showing is I have all the boards laid out because they come in packages of 6, and I have no doubt that when they mill them, they mill up a board and then they package it all together. So all the ones that are in the pack probably came from the same board or the same tree, and some are a little bit lighter and some a little bit darker, and you don't want to end up with a patch of like several white panels, several dark panels, several light panels, over and over and over again and have it look too uniform. At least in my opinion, that wouldn't look as cool as everything just kind of random. I'm also putting dabs of construction adhesive on the back, just kind of plop, 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 plop all the way down so that when we stick them on the wall, they lay flat and they don't end up kind of doing a funny little curve or waves or anything like that. So how about that? We got the walls insulated on the north and east side. We got drywall up. We got cement fiberboard up for the fireplace. And look at this lovely cedar paneling. And then of course upstairs, we've got most of the insulating done. We've got one of the walls sheetrocked. Man, it finally feels good after putting in a ton of work to actually have something go right and not look like crap. Anyway, I'm gonna eat lunch, clean up, and get out of here. I'll see you guys next time.